listeners to BizBlend, the podcast where business meets soul. I'm your host Sana as always, and today we are diving with into one of the most pressing conversations of our time. Leadership in an age where everything, technology, work culture, communication, is evolving at a lightning speed. And our guest is someone who doesn't just talk about this change, he has led through it. Well, listeners, meet Mike Peterson. He is the author of the brilliant new book, Leading in the Age of Digital Disruption. He's also the founder of Apex Consulting Partners with nearly 20 years of global experience leading in HR and IT across biotech giants like BioMarine and UCB. Well, Mike's work sits at the intersection of human connection and technological evolution, listeners. And today on BizBlend, we are unpacking what it truly means to lead in a world that has been kind of turned upside down by hybrid workforces, accelerated innovation, especially with the inception of AI, and also shifting cultural expectations. So, if you are a founder or an executive or simply a human navigating leadership in a digital era, this conversation is definitely going to hit home for you. So, with that, Mike, welcome to the show, and it's such an honor having you with us.
Thank you so much, Sana. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, that's great, great. Okay, so let's start with your book, Mike. So, what I have, gone through or studied through, your book opens with the story of Ethan Caldwell, hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, a
Mhm.
fictional but familiar CEO who is navigating massive disruption. Um, and I have read within multiple, business books or maybe articles that when you have people, processes, and your values set up in place, um, you are able to face the disruptions or the changes in the
Mhm.
dynamics or market. So what inspired this narrative approach, Mike, for you, and how does storytelling elevate the leadership lessons in your book?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think it's really good and one that I spent a long time trying to kind of figure out as I went through this journey. As you said in your introduction, have close to 20 years of experience in leadership in HR and IT, and throughout that time have read a myriad of leadership books. And
Mhm.
oftentimes it's a little bit challenging to put that theory into practice. It's abstract. It can sometimes be a little bit dry and hard to read. And in my experience, people learn best experientially, meaning they learn best when they are hands on doing the work themselves. And so I wanted to start this story to have people see these leadership challenges unfold in real time as they read through the story and really give people the experience of what bad leadership looks like and what good leadership can feel like. And then all of the aspects of the story are tied into this really practical guide and toolkit that's the second half of the book to really put those practices into place in their own personal stories wherever they might be.
Mm. I definitely think this is such a beautiful intersection of a fictional and a non-fictional book because we do not associate business with something fictional. Although we do kind of create um, um, our target audience persona when we think about marketing, but this is really really creative. Um,
Yeah, and I've worked with thousands of leaders over the years and tried to pull that experience into the book. So although it is fictional, there are very familiar struggles that many leaders throughout the world are dealing with today.
well, that's really great. Okay, now you talk a lot about trust. as a competitive advantage. We often associate trust as a quality or skill of a good leader, or being empathetic and trusting your people, your team members. But in a remote or a hybrid environment, how can leaders build trust when face to face interactions are so limited?
Yeah, trust is the really the foundation of any high performing team. But now in this age of rapid technological change and hybrid work, I think trust is even more important than ever. And in leading in the age of digital disruption, I talk about this common misconception where uh, oftentimes clients and leaders I speak with think of trust as um, allowing someone to work independently, and then I trust them to do this work without being involved at all. And that's not really how trust has evolved in today's workforce. And so I define trust as the mutual belief that someone is working in the best interest of the company. And that takes a lot of intentional effort when, like you said, face to face interaction is limited, where there might be communication delays. Oftentimes, there's a sense of disconnection when someone is working from their desk on their own day to day. And um, and there's a lot of ways to deal with it, but it really um, takes this intentional effort. A leader I worked with recently had some challenges with trust on his team, and uh, what I found out when doing an assessment was there was a lot of triangulation, and that means that people were hearing words from their leader through someone else's mouth, and so what I was able to find was that he was prioritizing conversations with people that were in the office. So he would tell them uh, what those expectations were or what the update was. And he would talk to his team members who were remote and would say, well, we'll talk about this when you're in the office 2 or 3 weeks from now. And then, of course, those team members would then hear it from the other people who are in the office, and it breeds this kind of environment where people aren't really sure what's actually going on, and so it means that we have to think about um, doing what's required now rather than prioritizing someone who's in the office over someone who's remote. It takes really this intentional design of making sure there's an equal playing field across locations and geographies. And nowadays, it's great because technology can actually make this much easier than it's ever been before to set up asynchronous communications or track projects so everyone has access to status of company initiatives no matter where they are.
Mm. You raised a really, really good point. Such an important and very, very much relevant because um, we often see kind of a different treatment given to let's say an employee or a team member who is working for long hours and completely showing up, dedicated to the work. But let's say if another team member is very calculative in terms of the hours dedicated, although both of them are giving maybe the same output or same deliverable, but the kind of treatment, I think that creates a mistrust. Secondly, one another important aspect which I believe is uh, sometimes managers or leaders, because of that notion that yes, I'm in an authoritative position, I'm not receptive to feedback, I should give feedback, but I am if I ask for feedback, I may show up as a weak leader or a weak manager, somebody who doesn't have any clue what kind of work they're doing. So I think that also affects their trust dynamics within the team as well as with the leader.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that feedback is incredibly powerful. I often like to say that feedback is a gift, and you can choose to accept it or not, but you should always offer it, both directions. And in leading in the age of digital disruption, uh, it outlines really three of the most important aspects of leadership, which I think are trust, transparent communication, and accountability. And feedback is in my chapters about transparent communication, and completely agree that uh, that communication is very closely intertwined with trust, and it can either build up trust through that communication, or it can quickly degrade trust over time if you're not open to feedback, or if you give feedback to some people but not to others, or give it inconsistently. So feedback is a very, very powerful tool that should be used very intentionally.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is not only relevant in at an enterprise level or for corporates. I think for startups and small or medium businesses as well, because sometimes as a founder or an entrepreneur, uh, something which we have created can be so we can be so obsessed with that we are not give be receiving a feedback from our sales teams or marketing team, whosoever is on the front line talking to the leads or the customers. We may not receive a constructive feedback or a negative feedback constructively, and work on improving the product, and that kind of may also hamper the trust dynamics. That okay, whatever kind of suggestions I may give from the field or from my customers or leads, they are not going to listen it or implement it. So I think that's relevant across any uh, kind of organization out there.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Great, great. Also, Mike, uh, and this particular term I have gradually, recently started learning, in few of my conversations on BizBlend, servant leadership. It is a theme that you emphasize. I absolutely love the concept of servant leadership. But in high pressure environments where the numbers, the target, deliverables, bottom lines, they dominate, how can leaders still prioritize empowerment over control without losing performance metrics?
Yeah, such a um, interesting question. I think that servant leadership is very powerful, and although it's not a part of the core pillars of the model in leading in the age of digital disruption, it's an aspect that really needs to surround everything that a leader does in an organization. And although servant leadership was initially coined in the 1970s by Robert K. Greenleaf, I believe and discussed in the book that the concept of servant leadership has really changed drastically now in this age of technology, and it's really about making sure that your team has access to tools that are really openly available to everyone, to really help differentiate organizations. And um, what you're talking about specifically in your question is what I refer to as accountability based on trust. And
Mm.
again, all of these concepts are kind of intertwined, and it really breaks down to um, communicating very clearly what expectations are. So teams have a very clear idea of what success is. You build trust within an organization that everyone is working on the best interest of the company. And accountability is really making it very clear within your team who is doing what, when, and why, and when certain large milestones are done. And so when you have these three items together, um, employees just they want to succeed. They want to deliver that value, right? And so oftentimes companies they say, "Oh, well, there's no accountability, right? So and so failed, didn't hit his sales target, and he should be fired." And that's not really the accountability that I discussed in the book. And so it could get there, sure, but it's really more about making sure that your team has the information they need to succeed, which is a very clear definition of what success looks like and very clear agreements on when that success needs to be achieved.
Mm, right, right. Okay, Joshua. So I think the balance is so crucial. It's definitely a delicate dance, but you have explained quite, really well. Okay, now let's talk about innovation. Of course, it is so much relevant right now. I think, before the advent of social media or AI, we used to talk about disruptions probably in 5 years or 10 years in the dot com or the computer era. But right now, innovations are happening within the same month itself.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can be really very overwhelming, really daunting, especially for small or medium businesses. So, you mentioned that fostering innovation requires psychological safety and experimentation. So, what are some low cost, high impact ways leaders can actually begin shifting into that kind of, culture or psychology, especially if their team is burned out or maybe fearful of failing?
Yeah, yeah. I think oftentimes, what I see in talking with clients is that the most common kind of breakdown is maybe a leader has very strong opinions themselves that might come across as over controlling. Employees are afraid of failing, um, and those are things that need to be demonstrated, and leaders need to lead by example, and really set these clear expectations of what they want innovation to be, dedicate specific time to that outcome, and and reinforce and demonstrate themselves that mistakes are okay, that to really innovate, we have to let ourselves outside of the box of safety. And I had a leader that I worked with once who um, really touted that he loved innovation, and innovation was one of the values of the company, and it was really important. And he gave a blanket statement across the company and said, everyone should have 20% of their job um, be this kind of innovative time for them to experiment with whatever they want. And while that's great, I think that employees need guidance, right? What problem are we specifically trying to solve? What value are we trying to add to the company? And let's think about what calculated risks that we can take um, to really further innovate within the company, and not just think about if someone can innovate how to add better snacks in the break room, or innovate something that's completely different than a company's mission of delivering payroll software, whatever that might be. So it really has to be intentional, and led by example to drive that psychological safety.
Hmm, right, that's right. Okay, now let's take this up from a different context, rather angle. Uh, so, some would argue that digital transformation has made leadership more transactional, not more human. So, do you think technology is helping or hindering the real human connection in the workplace?
Hmm. I do think, at least now, humans are still the most important aspect of business success. I think that might very well be different 20 years from now. as the world of AI continues to advance. But as of now, um, really how we interact as humans within a company is the differentiator between successful companies and companies that fail. And now we just have access to this unbelievably powerful array of tools. But what I see so many times is these tools are kind of drop shipped by IT organizations, and they say, "Okay, well, I've implemented Slack. Go ahead and do whatever you want to do," or "I've implemented SharePoint. Go ahead and have at it. I've implemented ADP. Do what you need to do," and they don't think about the human aspect of um, of how this technology is going to be used. And so I really think rather than using technology to lead, we need to lead through technology and really think about integrating it into the organization rather than just having it as a tool that sits on the sideline that's available if someone decides they want to use it. If that makes sense, I think it's really important to kind of live and breathe through the tools that you choose to use within your organization.
Absolutely right. I absolutely agree with that. Great, great. And also, Mike, any personal rituals or boundaries you have as a leader, because I from my experience, what I absolutely believe is you cannot preach what you are not practicing. So
Mhm.
you can share.
Yeah, I think practice what you preach is almost exactly one of the biggest concepts that I have in the first few chapters of leading in the age of digital disruption. It's just said in a slightly different way, which is you permit what you promote what you permit.
Mhm.
Um, Meaning, if you allow toxic behaviors to exist within your organization, you're essentially saying it's okay to be toxic. And I think that's incredibly important. I think, um, my number one ritual as a leader myself is developing a learning organization, right? One that uh, is never the foremost expert on any subject, right? There's always room for improvement. There's always room for learning more, for experimentation, for continuing to gather feedback. And I love talking about this concept with my team, and it's really important that people that I hire in my organization uh, are either firm believers of that themselves, or they're willing to operate in that environment, because um, I think it's so important in what we do every day that we give and receive feedback regularly, not only just from our bosses, but from our peers, from our colleagues and other functions or departments, and we kind of build that into to our daily practice. So having both opportunities in like one-on-one meetings for these feedback conversations to happen, but also team meetings and cross-functional team meetings um, in the organization. I think it's incredibly important.
Wow, that's really great. So, Mike, if our listeners would like to connect with you and get a hold of your book, how they can do that?
Yeah, my website is apexconsulting.partners. People can reach out through the website if they want to do some work on building a high performing team. They can also reach me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn, and my book is going to be available on Amazon and any other online book retailers across the U.S. Starting next week, April 8th.
Oh, wow, lovely. I'll have all the details mentioned in the show notes. And Mike, thank you so much for this powerful conversation and for reminding us that Leadership is no longer about command and control, it's about connection, clarity, and courage. So, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, son. I really appreciate it.
And to all of my listeners, if you're ready to level up your leadership and embrace the digital future with purpose, grab a copy of Leading in the Age of Digital Disruption. It's packed with wisdom and real world tools, as you got a hint from this conversation today with Mike. Just refer to the show notes and also don't forget to subscribe to BizBlend and leave us a review if this episode sparked something within you. Until next time, this is your host Sana signing off and keep blending bold ideas with mindful leadership. Thank you.